There's a saying online that if a person eats only rabbit meat for a long time, they'll starve to death. Is that really true? For example, if you eat it continuously for 2.5 years, let's get straight to the point, you'll most likely die. But the rabbit meat we're talking about here isn't spicy rabbit head from Chengdu or rabbit hot pot and the like, but plain boiled rabbit meat without any seasoning at all. Speaking of rabbit hot pot in Chengdu, let me just chime in. If you ever go to Chengdu, don't stay too long, or you might end up with a sore butt from eating so much spicy hot pot. As for why eating only rabbit meat for a long time can be fatal, the reason is actually quite simple. Rabbit meat is very low in fat and is almost entirely protein. The energy that protein can provide is limited, and the body actually needs to expend a lot of energy to break down protein. If you only consume protein for a long time, your body will end up using more energy than it gets. That's why our daily diet needs to include a certain amount of carbohydrates and fats as well. Most people can understand the need for carbohydrates, but when it comes to fat, many see it as something bad. In reality, that's just our own bias. The same food can be perceived very differently depending on a person's situation. It's like how a round-faced man with a buzz cut and a full beard might look like a rough guy to most people, but to certain groups in some second-tier cities, he might actually be seen as a lowly. In the same way, since we modern people have no worries about food and drink, it's natural for us to find fat greasy. But back in times of famine, fat was an extremely rare and precious thing. When I was young, I often heard the older generation say that in their time, when people went to the market to buy meat, everyone scrambled for the fatty cuts, and nobody wanted the lean meat. That's the allure of fat. Earlier, I mentioned that people who eat only rabbit meat would starve to death, but actually, it's not starvation, they die from malnutrition. When the human body is at rest, it mainly relies on carbohydrates and fats for energy. Although protein can also be converted into glucose to supply energy to the body, that's more of a secondary function. Its main role is to provide amino acids to build the body's various tissues. Moreover, the waste products generated from protein metabolism, such as urea and ammonia, need to be filtered out of the body by the kidneys. So if you eat only protein for a long time, your kidneys will be powerless like a sleeping husband when faced with a flood of urea and ammonia relentlessly attacking your body. In terms of energy conversion efficiency, glucose is the fastest substance to provide energy, followed by sucrose. I once saw a question that asked, for someone who is about to starve to death, which would save their life more, a glass of ice-cold cola or a big hamburger? The answer is the ice-cold cola. Although the hamburger has more total calories than the cola, breaking down protein requires energy first, which is something a person on the verge of starvation simply can't handle. Sugar, on the other hand, provides energy more directly and rapidly. In terms of energy efficiency, after carbohydrates, it's fat. Besides storing energy, fat also serves to keep us warm and protect our internal organs from shocks. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that ancient generals weren't all muscular and ripped. They were actually big guys with plenty of fat, like paper-wrapped chicken. In other words, having an 8-pack may look good, but it's not really useful. Real men are sexiest with a solid single block of abs. So never cut out fat from your diet. People need to consume fat at all times. When lions and tigers catch their prey, they always like to eat the organs first. On one hand, it's because the organs are soft and easy to digest. On the other hand, it's because organs contain a lot of fat, which can be stored as energy. Of course, you shouldn't go to extremes. Everything requires moderation. It's just like pursuing a girl. You should lower your stance appropriately, but if you lower it too much, you'll come across as a sycophant. Consuming too much fat isn't good either. The downsides are well known to everyone. And from an evolutionary perspective, our preference for the taste of sugars, fats, and proteins is also the result of genetic conditioning. We like sweet flavors because sugars represent a large amount of energy, which is beneficial for survival. So our genes have defined this taste as delicious, making it irresistible. You eat it and want more again and again. Driven by our genes, we also instinctively enjoy the taste of fats. If you don't believe it, just try cooking a dish without a single drop of oil and see how it tastes. We also like umami because its chemical basis is glutamic acid and other amino acids, so foods with an umami taste usually indicate an abundance of protein. These taste preferences have been shaped and refined by our genes over millions of years of evolution, making us more inclined to choose foods that are rich in nutrients and beneficial for survival, and generally, this instinct doesn't lead us astray. Why is braised pork belly so delicious? It's because it contains 30% sugar, 30% fat, and 40% protein, a combination that perfectly hits the genetic sweet spot for pleasure. In other words, sometimes when you feel like you have a big appetite, it's actually your genes at work, and it doesn't really have much to do with your own willpower. Genes create these pleasurable taste sensations to encourage us to consume sugars, fats, and proteins, which is why it's important to pay attention to a balanced diet. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, eating only rabbit meat for a long time can be fatal. In fact, it's not just rabbit meat. It's never a good idea to eat only one type of food, so eating only vegetables without any meat isn't healthy either. For me, being told I can't eat meat heartily is just as devastating as being told I can't have sex. Personally, I have nothing against vegetarians, and I respect their choices. But brothers, remember this. If someone not only refuses to eat meat themselves, but also tries to force you to do the same, then honestly, you should give them a good smack. We spent hundreds of thousands of years evolving to the top of the food chain, and it certainly wasn't so we could empathize with our food. A crucial step in human evolution was starting to eat meat, which allowed us to obtain food with a higher energy density. If we didn't eat meat and only survived on wild fruits and grasses, we wouldn't get enough energy, and we'd have to spend most of our day foraging. How could we possibly dominate the earth that way? In fact, it's only in the past 1 or 2 generations that we've escaped hunger. From our grandparents' time and back hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in constant anxiety over energy shortages. Those who survived were always hovering between not having enough to eat eat and not starving. And now, after just a few days of having enough food, people are already giving up meat. Besides, the pH of human stomach acid ranges from 1.5 to 3.5, close to that of scavengers. Having such strong stomach acid but only using it for vegetables, doesn't that seem like a waste? But now, we modern cattle and horses often have no particular standards for eating, yet all sorts of demands elsewhere. That's really putting the cart before the horse. Our health is the foundation of everything, so we should hold ourselves to higher standards and stricter requirements when it comes to eating. Now that the new year is here, brothers, make sure to pay attention to balanced nutrition and eat well at the New Year's Eve dinner.